watching almost all of the Harry Potter movies, including Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and I kind of forgot how much, one, I really love Harry Potter, but two, how much I also very much dislike a lot of portions of Harry Potter. And you might be asking, how can you do both those things at the same time, right? Well, one, I love Harry Potter because it's whimsical, it's magical, it makes you feel like it could be real, like it's just hiding behind the curtain waiting to be discovered. And it's just a great story. Like, it's very, very well written through and through. Now, are the Harry Potter movies a little bit going away from the book 100%? And do they make the books look a little silly sometimes? 100%. But even still, it's still a good story at the end of the day. You know, they still make you on the edge of your seat and make you want to watch the next movie and give you kind of that magic feeling. You know, what you think magic would feel like if it were real. And then you have Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Absolute cinematic movie. Is it good? Yeah. I think it's really cool that it explores the different animals and creatures of the wizarding world. It, we get to see 10 times the amount of spells that we get to see from Harry Potter. I mean, just from Newt Scamander alone, we see spells that we have never even grazed in Harry Potter. And as a overall, I think that like the action in the movies is like really really nice. Now, I do think something that's a little bit funny, you know, if you ever watch the behind the scenes, they're just kind of like sitting there pointing at each other, which is kind of funny. But when on the screen, you know, obviously it's animated and everything, and it just looks incredible. But here is where my problem comes in, okay? The fact that they put so many gaps in the story is probably one of the most irritating things. Now, I understand this was written by a person, and at the end of the day, whatever that person writes was canon, or whatever that person says was canon, of course, but it just infuriates me watching a movie and once again seeing Dumbledore, the guy who basically told one of the greatest dark wizards to ever live, Voldemort, that he can pull up whatever he wanted to because he was going to wipe the floor with him. You know? Like, we see Dumbledore time and time again where he is one of the best wizards to ever lived, but for some reason doesn't help in situations where you think he should help. Like if I was Dumbledore, like just straight up, I know there's a whole backstory with him and Grindelwald or whatever. But if I was Dumbledore and I didn't want Grindelwald to die, this is more than likely what I would do. I would pull up on Grindelwald. I beat him in a 1v1 duel, taking his wand, and then I would wipe his memories of ever being a wizard. And I would be like, "Yo, yeah, you're just an old guy. You live in London," and like I'll call it a day. Because if he did that, Grindelwald would live. He wouldn't end up harming him in a significant way, and as a overall, the movie would end like instantly. And I know that's kind of weird. Like, why do you want the movie to end so fast? But it's just stuff that I think about, right? It's like, why is one of the most powerful wizards of the time, who's the only competitor, is Grindelwald? Uh, why aren't they pulling up? You know, because how they represent Dumbledore throughout the entire series is he is this master duelist, this master at weaving spells, this master at creating spells. But then they show that he's like on par with Newt Scamander, or he's on par with Ron's dad, for example. It and you might be asking like, well, how can he be on par with those people? I don't think he really is technically, but I'm saying how they represent him in the few scenes we actually see him put in the work, he's on par with them. You have Newt Scamander who's making spells almost constantly to help raise his creatures to the point where he is taking old spells that we've seen before and almost kind of reanimating them and reinventing them to make them 10 times better for his needs. And then you have Ron Weasley's dad, who, from our understanding, because we don't really have any context behind this, made a sentient being that can fly out of his own car that's completely loyal to the Weasleys to the point where the car can show up and leave as it pleases and still be driven if it decides it wants to be driven. So you have basically a wizard who created one of the first flying spells ever, from our understanding, because we don't see it throughout the rest of the series. Like flying plus sentience, which is crazy. And then you have another wizard who's making all of these spells and reinventing them. Meanwhile, Dumbledore, yeah, when he pulls up and he actually does something, you're like, oh, Dumbledore, you're going crazy. But when he doesn't do that, you're like, dude, what are you doing, Dumbledore? Oh well, I didn't want to hurt my friend at the end of the day, so I just decided that they could hurt him. Like that doesn't make logical sense to me. I think they make Dumbledore play it too safe, especially in the movies. Like a lot of people are like, oh well, the Ministry is watching him. That did not stop him in Harry Potter, and I think that there's the difference between the two movies. Is the Ministry was watching him, but it's because they were afraid of what he could do. They knew that at any point in time, Dumbledore could be like, no, I'm not listening to the Ministry, and then literally lock down Hogwarts, make it his own fortress, and basically, I mean, he could have taken over the Wizarding world if he wanted to. But in Fantastic Beasts, it's the complete opposite. They're afraid of Dumbledore, but they just pull up and they're like, "Here's some handcuffs to tell us what spells you cast." Like, what? What is the purpose of this besides like Dumbledore just being afraid? I don't know. Like, if they come in and they strip you of your teaching license, basically, or they strip you from being a teacher, they basically try to force you to assassinate someone, and then they get mad at you. Like, I just don't think Dumbledore's sticking around. I think Dumbledore's like, oh yeah, you want to arrest me? You want to put some gauntlets on me that's going to tell you what spells I'm casting? Yeah, well, that's cool. Boom, gone, teleported. Literally, like what we see him do at the beginning of the Fantastic Beast movies, where he instantly teleports away, like no trace whatsoever, to the point where Newt can't even find him because of how good the teleportation, how precise it was. He was able to teleport from, like, I think it was like London back to Hogwarts or something like that. Like, that's crazy. That's a crazy feat that they just kind of gloss over. And as a overall, this is why Harry Potter, the series, infuriates me, because they do this not only to Dumbledore, but they do it to a lot of people. They downplay how skillful they truly are, right? They downplay Newt Scamander to make him seem like this kind of awkward guy who doesn't understand magic too well, until he just pulls out like some crazy spell that you've never seen before in your entire life. And it's the same thing with like the Weasleys. I think is a great example in the actual Harry Potter movies, where the Weasleys are a well-known, prominent family that's full-blooded in the Wizarding world, and all their children are completely full-blooded, and they're raising so many kids, but they're still able to buy a house, have a car, buy buy land, and then on top of that, they're incredibly genius duelists. That they downplay them a lot in the movies, but they're incredibly smart duelists. I mean, there's a reason why one of the Weasleys literally is basically a dragon tamer. You know, it's not because he's like, oh, hmm, a dragon. Why do I pet it? It's like, no, bro is going there fully prepared for combat. And it sucks because you can actually see it in the movies too, where almost every single Weasley is a genius, but they purposely like super downplay Ron and his and Fred and George, I think is what their name is. Sorry, I'm blanking the names a little bit here, but yeah, in it's just one of those things where you're like, God, these guys are so intelligent. Because like Fred and George were always like still a little bit goofy, like even in the books, but like they make them seem dumb goofy instead of, oh, this guy's just funny, you know. And there's just something so different about it. And if you go back and you watch the movies or you read the books or whatever, you could probably tell what I'm talking about instantaneously, where they just downplay how good people really are at like just being incredible at being wizards, you know? Because like 99% of people are terrible wizards. It's just facts. Like they graduate Hogwarts, they work for the Ministry, and they push papers, and like that's it. But you have people like the Weasleys, the Blacks, the Potters, that in general are fantastic duelists and have a lot of family backing to the point where you question why they're made to look like fools throughout the series. But yeah, this is just kind of my rant today. Was because it's something I noticed, but you know, picking up on some Harry Potter and stuff like that. So let me know what you guys think. You know, maybe there's some points that I missed here and there. 100%. I'd love to hear some like lore or some just random facts about Harry Potter that I don't know about because I don't know everything. You know, I'm not going to claim to know everything. I just know that the gaps irritate me. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace.